Dr. Wittstein, welcome back to Age Better.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Today, we're doing something really fun, I think. We're talking about a study that came out in the medical journals, but then somehow it made the rounds recently in the general media. So I picked up on it and I said, this is very interesting. So let me bring Dr. Wittstein on to see if she says, like, yes, no, or yes, but, which is kind of like your three choices. So this particular study says that you can do 4 minutes of exercise a day, and that's enough. So as an orthopedic surgeon and a sports medicine specialist at Duke, what say you?
So, yes, if you're someone who has essentially no physical activity at baseline and you want to improve your health significantly, this small change can make a difference. No, if you're someone who is already more active than this is going to result in a decline in your physical health. And there are many buts, just so many nuances to any interpretation of a study like this, really depending on the individual, where they're starting from, what their goals are. Yeah, so we can dive into that.
Yeah, totally. And so let's just talk about what the study actually showed. 4 exercises, 30 seconds each. Push-ups, chair stands, meaning like, you're seated in a chair and then you stand up, sit, stand. Seated rows, stair stepping. So what impressed you most about this study?
Well, first of all, this is a study that showed very high compliance. So in people who were otherwise somewhat limited in their mobility already. And so anything that has high compliance is more likely to be effective than something that has low compliance, people just not participating in it or being unable to participate. So there was a low barrier to entry and high compliance, which was good. And then if you look at the end results of the study, the things that were most impressive to me is that in the intervention group, they were able to take people from a timed single leg balance that was less than 10 seconds to more than 10 seconds, which is actually a critical value. There was a study done in the British Journal of Sports Medicine in 2022 that showed that people who had less than 10 seconds of single leg balance versus those who had more than 10 seconds of single leg balance had an 87% greater mortality rate over a 7-year period. So that's some meaningful change that they achieved in these people. And the other, I think, pretty meaningful change was they looked at their time for doing, it's called a time sit to stand test, where, they're doing 5 repetitions of sit to stand. And they moved the needle on these people significantly by reducing their time for 5 sit to stands by 2.76 seconds. They kind of took them to a number under 11 seconds, which is another good number to be under. If you read that recent study in JAMA, which was based on the WHI data, where they compared women who took more than 17 seconds and those who took less than 11 seconds to do 5 sit-to-stands, there was a 35% difference in mortality risk. So these people weren't that bad off. They weren't over 17 seconds, but they were over 11 seconds and they got them under 11 seconds. So there were some meaningful functional changes. The single leg balance is the most impressive change to me, though. And they did that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And by the way, you did mention the compliance part.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was interesting. I'm reading here that the participants did the workout 81% of the days. That's high. Nearly 6 days a week for 3 months. And most people probably wouldn't do that. I mean, I think that we could safely assume most people aren't going to do that. They're not that people are not that compliant. So is the real headline not 4 minutes works, but 4 minutes is a dose people will actually take?
Right.
Maybe.
Or do. Yeah. And especially when you're looking at a group of people who already have some mobility limitations and have a low level of physical activity, you can't have people make such a large leap. So this was, clearly attainable. And something that people could do. Again, that low barrier to entry, or, low hanging fruit, as we say.
Yeah. But let's go back to the improvements though, because you mentioned some, like people did improve. That we
Mm-hmm.
can say people did improve, which is why I think the study is making the rounds. But you're right. It's like, where are you starting from? At what point?
Mm-hmm.
But there was improvement in the balance. There was improvement in the sit to stand. And so when you translate that to real life, that's what's really important. I mean, there was this famous scene from some TV show that Jane Fonda was on. Was it Frankie and Johnny? I think it was. I forget the exact name of it. That ran for a couple of years. And it was a very funny scene where she could not stand up from her boyfriend's very low Japanese toilet bowl. And
Oh,
so and then I always think of that as like a real life situation that if people really aren't building that, aren't
mm,
building their lower body, they will have issues if there is nothing for them to hold on to. And the preference, of
yeah,
course, is that you do get up without having to use your arms, right?
right.
So
And that's something
that's
I
a good
check in
translation.
clinic. Yeah, there are a lot of yeah. If someone can't get out of a chair without using their arms, that is concerning for many things. Like if you injure your arm and you need a shoulder surgery, like a shoulder replacement or a rotator cuff repair or something, and you can't get out of a chair without using your arms, it can be very limiting. But yeah, it is a significant marker of weakness if you can't get out of a chair without using your arms. Now, there are other issues, like some people have terrible knee arthritis, like debilitating, and are waiting to get a total knee or something like that. And so it's not always just strength, but certainly it is a reasonable marker of lower extremity strength and function.
Right. And I think the message here is that, I mean, maybe this isn't enough. And I think that you will be getting
Mm.
to that. Like it's
Yeah,
okay, but it's definitely not enough. But it really is important to focus on these things so that you can live a good life as you get older and don't get stuck like Jane Fonda did in that,
right,
in that TV show on her boyfriend's Japanese toilet bowl. So
right.
anyway, so, you know, let's talk about the but, like we've been talking about. Yes, but okay, there's a lot
Mhm,
of like nuances here, as you said, but here's what the headlines skip. Every person in the study was inactive, right? As you said, and
mhm,
already had difficulty walking a quarter mile. I mean, they
mhm.
already had difficulty doing that. So who does the study really apply to and who shouldn't take it as an excuse to scale back?
Right. So this is applying to people who already have limited mobility and have basically, zero baseline or very low baseline physical activity. These numbers certainly do not meet some of the thresholds that we know have other benefits for people. Like, of course, some of the recommendations are 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity physical activity or 75 minutes per week of vigorous intensity physical activity, both for brain and heart health. Certainly it's not meeting those thresholds. But again, if you're doing nothing, doing something is an improvement. And we've learned from a lot of the UK biobank data that actually as little as 5 minutes per day of vigorous activity can significantly reduce dementia risk by about 41, can reduce cardiovascular related mortality by similarly around 40%. But then there's a dose dependent effect, where you get into higher exposure to exercise, sort of upwards of 140 to 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity exercise. You're going to see greater risk reduction for things like dementia, closer to a 70% risk reduction when compared to no activity. So it's not that there isn't added benefit to added exposure, but there is like some baseline significant benefit to small amounts of vigorous activity. For people who are completely inactive, these 4 short exercises, that is a big bump in their
I was going to
intensity.
say that would be
Yeah,
considered possibly vigorous activity,
that
but
might
for
be a
many of
vigorous
us,
bout
that's
of
not.
activity for them, but for most people, that's not. And there are other thresholds that have floated around recently. We all heard of the 10,000 steps per day, but then there was that recent Lancet article that kind of established that achieving 7,000 steps per day as compared to 2,000 steps per day decreased mortality by about 47% and decreased falls by about 28. So again, 4 minutes of exercise is not even going to meet the 2,000 steps per day, which we're comparing to 7,000 steps per day to see these
Right,
benefits, right?
right.
But yeah, I think if you're starting from a very low threshold, every little bit helps. And it really depends on where you're starting and what your goals are. I know you've interviewed Ben Levine in the past, who has demonstrated his protocol, which involves about 5 hours a week of cardiovascular activity, including a Norwegian 4x4 one day a week, improved VO2 max by about 18%, or, reversed heart age by about 20 years. If that's your goal, again, you're not going to accomplish that with 2 minutes of exercise.
Exactly. And you know what? The authors themselves actually even say this does not mean that 4 minutes is enough for heart health, body composition, and this is our territory for bone health. I mean, this is like a focal point of our
for sure. Yeah.
conversation very often, Dr. Wittstein. So with 4 minutes of chair stands and stair stepping, those two in particular, do anything meaningful for osteoporosis prevention and, overall bone health? Or I'm assuming there's a completely different prescription for that.
Right. I think if this were your sum total of physical activity, this would not be enough for bone health. We know that, for example, even walking doesn't improve bone density, but exposure to more walking slows the loss of bone density, for example. And, even just looking at volume of that, like there was the Nurses' Health study that was published in JAMA in the past, where they compared people who walked 4 hours per week versus 1 hour per week, and showed that the people that walked 4 hours per week reduced their risk of hip fractures by like 41%. Well, if you think about, the comparison group was the 1 hour of walking per week. I mean, this is not anywhere near 1 hour of walking per week, right? So again, like the exercises included in the study are in many ways less intense or less volume, less exposure than the comparison control groups for many other studies. So this is truly a low barrier entry way to make small intervention but meaningful improvement for people who are essentially nearly sedentary with existing limitations in mobility. So it's impactful for that group, but not going to, meet thresholds for other people.
Right. And I think for the other people, which is the yes, but, nuance also, is that it could be viewed as like an exercise snack. Like, let's say you run out of time, or you're at the airport, or
Just
you
do
know what I
something.
mean?
Yeah,
Like
something
you can
is better
do
than nothing.
something. And we all know about exercise snacks has become a thing now. There's an actual name for it, where you just spend a minute or two. Like, for example, I'll very often throughout the day just go and do a couple of planks or push-ups or jumping jacks or hill drops.
Yeah.
Or go up and down stairs.
That
I mean,
gets
the
back to
list
that
is
concept
endless.
of these, several 1-minute bouts of vigorous activity has a significant, impact. Yeah, so I think people like to think about what the minimum amount you can do to improve something because it is appealing. But so often that minimum amount is compared to, nothing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, I want to get back to the Norwegian 4x4, which you mentioned that Dr. Benjamin Levine had discussed with me when I interviewed him. I myself now do. I was doing the Norwegian 4x4 by running, but now I've switched over to doing it on the air bike because of you, because you have discussed it when I've interviewed you before, but also you've done some really great Instagram posts about it. And just for the listener who does not know what the Norwegian 4x4 is, can you just explain that?
Right. So you can do a brief warm-up period for a few minutes, and then you're alternating 4 minutes of high intensity bout of activity where you're kind of going as hard as you can. And then,
Dr. Levine, sorry to interrupt, said about 85% of your maximum heart rate.
Yeah, about 85% of your max heart rate. I just like to say as hard as you can for 4 minutes, because no one can go at 100, you can't go at your max for 4 minutes, but what you can sustain as hard as you can for 4 minutes. So 85% of your max heart rate. And then you have a 3-minute active recovery where you are, continuing to move, but like at a rate where your heart rate is coming down and recovering as much as it can in 3 minutes. And then you repeat the cycle 4 times.
Right.
And it's essentially a form of HIIT training, high intensity interval training, which was a core part of his study. The participants did that once or twice per week, and then on other days they had a more moderate intensity and even an endurance day. They're like that. because of, just various conditions, knee arthritis being a common one, a reason why people often shift away or give up running. Or maybe they've had a surgery they're recovering from or something where they have a transient limitation.
Right.
And so I love to just tell people, there are many ways to do high intensity cardio training. It could be on an air bike, which is fairly whole body. It could be on a ski erg. It could be on a rowing machine. You could do it swimming. For some people, depending on their cardiovascular fitness, they may be able to really jack their heart rate up with an interval walking program, uphill walking, incline walking, walking wearing a weighted vest. These are all ways where you can increase the intensity of your exercise.
Yeah, I just want to point out one thing that if for those of you who don't know what an air bike is, it is one where also your arms are engaged. The handles go like that, back and forth.
Older people, not even older, myself included, well, you might know of an Airdyne, and then, the modern day reinvented fancy version of this is the assault bike that, people are on at CrossFit and such, but it's like an old school Airdyne. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. And I love it. I mean, I'm really happy that you introduced me to it. And that is my Norwegian 4x4 choice, is I do it on the air bike now once a week at least. But you did mention the walking, and I just want to also point out, I've written about and talked about on the show the Japanese interval walking training method, and that is where it's very similar, where you slow walk for 3 minutes, speed walk as fast as you can for 3 minutes. You go back and forth for 5 times. You do this 5 times. It's about half an hour, 40 minutes. And you get that heart rate up, lower heart rate up. It's very effective, again, for those who have some joint or knee issues.
And using an incline on a treadmill can be a great option for people just because it takes, incline walking uphill is like really a lot less stress on the patellofemoral joint, on the kneecap for people who have arthritis there. And if you do this on a treadmill, you can get the uphill without having to do the downhill. And that's one of the issues with hilly workouts for people who have arthritis, especially behind the kneecap, is the going uphill part is fine, but the going downhill.
Absolutely.
And if you do this outside, if you go up, if you want to get back to where you started, you have to go down. So the treadmill with an incline can be a good option too.
Yeah, I mean, I do have arthritis in my knees. I am training for the New York City Marathon right now. And, of course, it's a very hilly course. And so I am doing hill repeats. I have to train for them. And I will run up the hill, but I find I have to walk down the hill.
Yeah.
For sure. So, Dr. Wittstein, okay, so bottom line it for us, please. So complete this sentence. 4 minutes a day works, but
not if you are an average or above average person in terms of physical activity level.
So really, everyone, I think the message is something is better than nothing. You'll agree with that, Dr. Wittstein, I'm sure.
Yes,
something is better than nothing.
My mantra on a busy day. Something is better than nothing. Yeah.
Exactly. And you are very busy, as we know. But something is better than nothing. But you can also take this concept and do it as an exercise snack, or on those days when life is just kind of taking over your day. And you just
or
really
utilize
can't.
The concept that at higher intensity, even, 5 1-minute bouts of intense activity is definitely better than nothing. And that's going to be more that short amount of time is going to be more meaningful to someone than this very, low intensity 4-minute program that is for some people going to be high intensity, right? It depends on, it's all relative.
Right. So everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Dr. Wittstein, this was really fun. And I'm going to be doing more of these when I find that a medical study kind of hits the general media and people are really looking at it, but then might take it as an excuse to like, oh, I only have to do 4 minutes. So I kind of want to bring those to everyone's attention with an expert like yourself, Dr. Wittstein. So I'm looking forward to doing more of these episodes. And of course, everyone, in the show notes, we will have links to that original study so you can check it out for yourself, and also a link to more about Dr. Wittstein and her wonderful book, The Complete Bone and Joint Health Plan. And of course, follow her on Instagram. There will be a link to do that as well in the show notes. Okay, Dr. Wittstein, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks. I hope this is helpful.
Absolutely. Okay, everyone, see you next week.